What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I am your host, Warren Thompson, and today we're talking about something very, very exciting and important: mutants in the MCU. Now, the official trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness showed us that the Illuminati is going to be introduced in the film, and the mutants or X-Men are going to be introduced as well. Now, X-Men in the MCU is something that we've wanted for an insanely long time, but there is a big theory, a very, very important theory that you need to know, that states that the mutants could already be in the MCU. And I know a lot of theories out there have been talking about this lately. However, this is the original theory that I think makes the most sense, and it's coming from my buddy Greg Alba over at The Real Rejects. Now, I really, really like this theory because it kind of plays off of the House of M storyline, but it switches it up because we know that Marvel Studios never really goes word for word, story for story of what the comics actually do. They switch it up a little bit. So this, I actually think, could be the most accurate theory out there. Now, Greg hasn't really gotten credit for this theory, and he really should, because it's a really great theory. He took a lot of time putting the effort into coming up with this theory and connecting all of the dots. So today I'm going to switch it up. He usually reacts to me. I'm going to react to him, and we're going to talk about his theory because it's really, really good. So if you haven't already made your way to his channel, checked out the theory, do that now. Go ahead and like the video, come back here, and let's talk about what exactly this means. So Greg posted this theory 2 weeks ago, February 6th. Let's take a look at what it says.
MCU timeline we've been watching for the last 13 years. No more mutants has already happened. Like I said, I know this sounds like a bit of a reach. However, I think this would answer some questions we've had about the MCU. Questions specifically regarding the events of WandaVision. I think it would better help reintroduce X-Men and mutants into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And with this phase after WandaVision, Loki, even the trailer for Moon Knight, this is called Multiverse of Madness. This is the mind-bending phase of the MCU. What more of a mind-bender would it be than to reveal to us that mutants were already there and that the actions of the Scarlet Witch erasing the existence of mutants already happened. Dive into this with me. Spider-Man No Way Home. That showed us it's possible to erase people from the world's memory, including Doctor Strange, via forgetting who Peter Parker was. Yep. Spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home. What if this movie takes it the next step further? Since WandaVision was announced, everyone has been looking to the House of M comic book as like the go-to source material to better understand and perhaps predict what might happen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yep. Now, that's an important comic, but the comic that I'd recommend looking into is actually one of the follow-ups to House of M, X-Men Endangered Species. In that comic, after the existence of mutants has already been reduced from millions to only hundreds around the world, Hank McCoy, aka Beast, sets out on a journey to find a way to reverse the spell Wanda cast. And along this journey, he eventually meets up with Doctor Strange, who tells him exactly this. What she did completely changed reality, that it's nearly impossible to see where reality ends and her alteration of it begins. She casts her spell over billions of souls, over worlds and dimensions. Reality has been consumed by her spell. The magic is woven through everything, welded to all there is. So in the source material itself, Doctor Strange declares her spell affected worlds and dimensions, i.e. the multiverse. I tried rhyming that. It didn't quite work. So the main rumor, ever since this movie was announced at Comic-Con, is that Wanda Maximoff will be the main villain of this movie. And another rumor that's been circulating is that the Illuminati might be featured in this movie. And they would essentially act as protectors of the multiverse, who are here to stop multiversal threats. With this being a Doctor Strange movie, with the few appearances that we got of Scarlet Witch, and a movie about traveling the multiverse, why would Wanda Maximoff be considered the ultimate threat to the multiverse? Is it because the Illuminati believe in witchcraft lore? I don't think so. Maybe this is the real reason why Agatha Harkness, who once possessed the Darkhold, which grants access to the multiverse, told Wanda, "You're supposed to be a myth." So am I saying that we're in some repeated time loop where the Wanda we've been with the whole time has already done this? No, I'm not saying that. Loki has already introduced us to variants. So as we saw in the setup of that show, a variant of our protagonist was considered a multiversal threat.
Right. And this is the biggest part right here. Okay, so I'm not going to show you Greg's entire video because I want you to go watch it because I feel that he really deserves to get the credit for this. So I will link it down below in the description, in the pinned comment. Go watch this video by Greg over at the New Rockstars. But here's the very important part that he talks about. And he did this video before the second trailer for Multiverse of Madness, the first official full trailer, came out. Now, when it came out, it actually really proves this theory pretty accurate. He talks about the Illuminati coming in and being kind of the protectors of the multiverse, which is what I've always talked about for, over a year now, I think. Now, the Illuminati comes in, and this is where things get really, really intense and really important. Now, we hear who we presume is Patrick Stewart's Professor Xavier say we should tell him the truth. Now, we also see, to Greg's point here, variants. We see a Wanda or Scarlet Witch variant. Now, these are two really, really important things, and I believe that they connect to each other. Doctor Strange goes in front of the Council of the Illuminati, and Patrick Stewart's Professor X says we should tell him the truth. What is the truth, right? Now, a lot of people are kind of linking this to the Scarlet Witch right now, but what Greg does is he links it to the fact that the Scarlet Witch could have already said no more mutants in a different universe. Now, as Greg pointed out, this means that it could be affected across the entire multiverse and not just in one universe. The comics kind of made that clear that they don't really know the extent of it, but it really affects everything. And it's probably going to be the same way in the MCU. Now, here's the twist, and it's a really good point to Greg's point here. It's probably not our Wanda who said no more mutants, because how could she really know about mutants? She didn't really know that she was the Scarlet Witch. But we see a different variant, and this variant looks pretty dang intense in the trailers. So the theory here is that this variant said no more mutants, and that's what the truth is that Professor Xavier is referring to. And now the biggest threat to the entire universe is this variant of the Scarlet Witch, and now our Scarlet Witch, because we can assume this variant is kind of getting in her mind and kind of controlling her a little bit, making her a little bit more evil. But if you think about this theory, it makes a lot of sense, because as Greg goes on to talk about, there would have to be a lot of things kind of retconned into the MCU if we wanted to bring the mutants in at this point, which wouldn't really work, because the mutants have been around since pretty much the creation of humans. In the comics, the Celestials created, and we just kind of saw this in the Eternals, but they created the Eternals and the Deviants. But mutants also came out of this in the comics. Now, they didn't mention that in the Eternals, but it could be because the existence of mutants have been erased. Because we can't have mutants be a part of the very beginning of time and just say, hey, they've been there the whole entire time, but we haven't talked about them. That doesn't really make sense, because especially if you take to the comics, there's a lot of stuff that's against the mutants. There's kind of a racism against mutants. People hate mutants, right? Now, you can't just ignore all of that, but we can have people remember that mutants have been around the whole entire time and they don't actually like mutants, and that would kind of solve the problem of bringing the mutants in right now. So to me, this theory actually makes a lot of sense. Wanda does say no more mutants, but it's not our Wanda, and it happened in another universe. Now, I still think our universe is the main MCU timeline. I've heard some other theories that state like, well, maybe we're living in a pocket universe. No, I don't think that's true. I just think that we're exploring the multiverse in this very specific movie. I think we can discover that multiverses and universes are affecting other different universes now. That's what this movie really is all about. Now, Greg does bring up an excellent point. Not too long ago, Kevin Feige released a scene that was never released before, a post-credit scene for Iron Man 1 where Nick Fury mentions mutants. Now, Kevin Feige does everything with full purpose, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he plans things like super far in advance. So he absolutely did this because the mutants were coming. Now, when he released this, the Fox deal had already been done. They have the rights to the mutants at this point, so they have planned for the mutants to come, which further proves that things are about to get pretty serious in Multiverse of Madness. They are going to bring in some mutants that are existing in other universes, and hopefully this will actually start to introduce our mutants in our universe to the MCU. Perhaps they were there the entire time. And I kind of think that they were. And I kind of think that after this movie is done, perhaps we'll get a reversal of this spell and mutants will now exist in our universe. But what do you think? Do you like this theory? I personally do. Don't forget to go over to The Real Rejects and check out this video. Give it a like and give them a subscription if you have not yet. And of course, don't forget to like my video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel news. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.